Dr. Foote. Thank you so much for being at my Facebook Live here today. Today we're going to talk about close tethering and the troubles with close tethering. Many of you are probably the behaviorists out there, maybe some of the veterinary practices also are getting people commenting or questioning about separation anxiety. We all pretty much anticipated separation anxiety was going to be troublesome as school started, people are going back to work, etc. Now, close tethering, which is where we're going to use a leash to sometimes actually have the dog tied to the individual, or ultimately to, say, a table or an object, to have the dog learn how to lay and be calm away from the owner. Many of these dogs who have separation anxiety are what we call the Velcro dogs. They're the dogs who literally have to be like right next to that owner. Their head's always on their lap. They're always laying on their feet. They're always laying on their side. They're up on the couch, just always literally touching them. And for these dogs, that touch to the owner is a part of the hyper bonding and also a little bit of their kind of coping mechanism. So we have to have this dog learn how to just not touch the owner, but trying to put the dog in a crate or anyway, trying to get the dog to stay away from the owner. The dog may be whining and pacing, so they're already upset. So tethering is a technique to be used, yet we have to really go through the steps of expanding the space from the owner quickly with using the tether, say especially to the person, so we don't increase the hyperbonding. It's kind of this balance, between the two. So that's why I'm going to call this troubles with tethering, because I'm going to show you the right way to do it and also point out where it starts to cause some trouble so we can avoid that and help our clients if they're using tethering as technique. Okay, so Bella, hi, want to get up? All right, guess who's here? Bella. We're going to start off with, so if we have a dog who just literally is always right by the owner's side, just is kind of hyper-focused on them. Many of these dogs, they're also a little impulsive. They're grabbing at the sleeve, they're grabbing at clothing, maybe barking for attention. So these dogs don't even know how to just be quiet, settle. They don't know how to even kind of focus for command. So this is where you will use the tether on the person at first. So Bella, come here. We're going to start off with, I like using a lighter weight, this is just a regular lightweight leash. And now you can buy, a leash that goes around the waist. Yet the trouble with this personal tethering for separation anxiety is this time period for the dog to actually be tethered to the owner should be very short, maybe 3 days, for this dog to learn how to just sit, look away, and be rewarded for that, looking away from the owner just for a second in a relaxed way, and be rewarded for that, because that's that first level of I don't have to be totally always focused on you, and then we take them to going over to an object. I do not want the dog in separation who has separation anxiety tethered to the owner for more than maybe 2 or 3 days as we're going through this tethering technique as a way of treating separation anxiety. So if we do need to start with just that dog who just literally can't stop touching the owner to at least be able to recognize and get the reward, not mouth and not jump up. We will do this close tethering. Come here, Bella. Come on. So I would have this leash. I'm going to put it through my belt loop, and so then the clip end is going to go on Bella's collar. You could use a harness, okay? If you have the clinic type leashes, just sort of flat leashes, the client would need to buy some kind of a clip end, or they could loop that end, through like the dog's collar, and then you're going to be wearing 2 of them for now a little bit, won't you, baby? And then I could, if I was wearing an actual belt, slip the handle through my belt. So this would be an inexpensive way to have your client have that 6-foot leash so we can do this tethering. Okay, so now Bella is doing the right thing. She's just sitting there. She's not pushing her body against me, so I would either hand her, or frankly, I really prefer to toss the reward down in front of her. Why? She puts her head down. She's not constantly looking at me for reward or affirmation. Did she do the right thing? The fact that she's receiving the food, now what's she doing? She's moving away from me. That's how I want this hyper bonded dog, the Velcro dog. learn literally how to be happy 2 feet away from their owner. And that's what she's already experiencing right now. Now, if I was walking around and I'm going to go, say, walk in my kitchen, and my dog follows along with me, or I may toss the food so she goes along without being commanded, we have to end a lot of this constant, I have to tell her what to do. I want her to learn how to move around and, move around, go from room to room on her own, figuring this out on her own. This is what's building up the independence. So this is how we would use this way of the very first step of close tethering for the dog to not be nudging me, not be barking. And again, we have to catch them when they're being good. So if the dog is just like that, she's just looking, I'm going to I could immediately give it to the dog like that, and I am not looking at my dog as I do this. You see that? Because look is a reinforcer. Look is like a reward, but it also, in these hyper-bonded dogs, keeps them tighter bound to the owner. All right, so after 2 days, if this dog is like belling, like I'll lay down and be calm, great, you're ready to go to step number 2. So step number 2 is I'm going to undo all this stuff here so I can get you off of me. All right, so Bella has now this little leash on, and now I'm going to take her over to, let's say, this table leg, and I may just put the loop of the leash under the table leg. So now she's tethered to the table, and as I go to sit down, and I may be reading a book or working on my computer, as I sit here and I ignore her and she's quiet, I have her food in my pocket. Remember, I really don't like having treat bags because it can kind of announce to the dog, whoops, there my treat train went off, sorry. It can announce to the dog, hey, it's time for training, and at other times they're not going to be as, just receptive and learn as well. It's kind of, I want this dog to be ready anytime to think of, oh, there's food over here, or it might be coming. So as Bella lays there, I am going to toss the food on the floor for her to turn away from me, for her to look away from me, for her to not bark at me, and if I caught her while she was quiet, I would continue to toss, and this is her supper. She does not eat out of a bowl anymore. She is earning all of her food for this independence training, and we're using a tether, and the tether is just the enforcer that she can't get over near my body. That's the tool that is going to help her learn to be happy at maybe 2 or 3 feet away from me. After 2 or 3 days, and she's happy at 2 or 3 feet, now we're going to increase that to 6 feet. And then we're going to increase that to 8 feet. And we're also going to combine where as I get up, I throw the handful of food and I walk away. I'm out of the room. As I'm out of the room, I throw her another handful of food. And we did this before in another Facebook Live. As I come in and I sit down, she's being kept busy and ignoring me as I sit down. Now, what also can help a lot, now this will be, we can use it when we have the dog on the tether, or if we now are at the point where we're just rewarding the dog to be in a confined area using the treat and train. So if we really now, if the dog has learned to be calm but keeps wanting to follow us, as we get up out of the room, we can use the treat and train, and that's, I have my little treat and train remote. So I can release the treat and train, and, oh, did you hear that? Now I have the tone off right now, but I can release the food from the treat and train. So Bella is now focused in this area. She's learning to stay in this area. As I walk out, and I can completely leave and stay. As I'm staying out, the treat and train will continue. I can continue to release it myself. It also has the downstay. Now it's really important, there's other devices, besides the treat and train, for doing this release of reward, release of food. And some of them are working by Bluetooth. Lay down. The Bluetooth technology can sometimes delay the release of the food, and that can be a timing problem. The Bluetooth can be nice because when your dog is not, sorry, I'm saying that wrong. Anyway, when your dog is not barking, then it can make it a little more difficult for making sure we're correcting the right thing. Okay, I'm going to turn this off right now. Guess who's getting a little hyper-focused? Okay, so tethering can really be a very useful tool. A couple, and really help the dog to first learn independence. And just a few other things where people may say they're having trouble with tethering. Let me take you off this right now, baby. That may be the dog may chew on the leash. Okay, I've had some clients, they tied the dog up and the dog chewed the leash in half within about 30 seconds. Now these tend to be dogs who are impulsive. They don't get out on walks often, and they just are accustomed to chewing things up. So what can you do? First of all, you could have a chain leash. Tell that client to get, so part of your questioning should be, does your dog tend to chew on the leash? Such as when you're clipping the leash on to go for a walk, is the dog grabbing a leash in his mouth? Then the dog has learned to do that. Get a chain leash then. If the client never walks their dog on leash, or they just don't have the time to get out to the store to buy a chain leash, you can take the cloth leash like this and put jalapeno pepper juice on it. You just take that, or a couple jalapeno peppers, rub it on the leash to go all the way up this far, and that's going to taste nasty. So when the dog mouths it, they will probably not chew on it, and that can help, to prevent the chewing of the leash problem. Now, tethering, ultimately, the dog will not need to be tethered. They're going to lay down like Bella does. They will go to their bed. It's good to have a spot on the floor like a bed or a towel that also marks this is where I want to lay when we're doing, tethering. But overall, tethering is a good technique, yet we need to be mindful of what our goals are and using that tether to help the dog learn how to be away from the owner, how to not be totally focused and clinging to the owner, and hyper bonded to the owner. So I do have a few other things. I have my separation anxiety webinar, the recording, available in my shop. And so if you want to take that, you can go to drsallyjfoote.com, and that is at the client level, as well as it's really helpful for the veterinary staff and for other animal behavior professionals. I will be presenting with the Illinois State Veterinary Medical Association at their live conference coming this November, and then also featuring some other webinars and things as we go through this fall. I hope everybody has a safe return back to school, stay healthy, and thank you.